Hello, welcome to the Courageous Self-Care podcast. I'm your host, Christina Marlette. On this show, we get into self-care that sometimes you wouldn't think about as self-care. We're not really teaching how to go get massages. We're not teaching how to go get pedicures and manicures. I'm sure you can figure that out yourself. The self-care that I'm into is expansive. So it's broadening our experience of self-care, and it's things that are both external, so focusing on making your body healthy and feeling amazing and having lots of energy, and then it's also going internal to the places where it can be murky and kind of jungle-like. There's unknown things, it can be scary, and great things are waiting to be discovered. So that's why it's important to have a guide. Here I am for you. I'm so honored to be that person. Thank you so much for tuning in. And I love to have guests who also share alignment with courageous self-care. So today I have with me Tanya Forbes. Tanya, welcome to the show.
Hi, Christina. Thanks for having me.
Such a pleasure. So Tanya, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you love to do.
Well, I own my own wellness practice called Healthy Me to You, and I do a couple things. I do bone therapy, which is a soft muscle tissue modality. I've done that for years, but mainly what I'm kind of focusing on is mind, body, eating coaching. And I help women basically who struggle with so much shame around food and their bodies that it stifles their self-expression and it kills off their joy and creativity and really holds them back from living an extraordinary life. And they know they want to be better role models for their children and just be better leaders for themselves in their own life. So typically I work with like my clients who they recognize that hating their bodies into weight loss isn't really working for them, right? And they're ready to look past that. They're ready to look past calorie counting and hardcore, horrendous exercise programs and routines and dieting and those dreaded weigh-ins to really find peace and discover peace within themselves and their bodies at any size, really. So yeah, that's basically what I do.
Well, that sounds like incredibly powerful work. And one of the courageous self-care foundational skill sets is learning to find harmony between masculine and feminine energy. And it sounds like for so many women, we try to approach how we feel and live and inhabit in our bodies in a very masculine way, like with the weigh-ins and the calorie counting and the really hard, intense exercise. And it sounds like you're bringing so much more of the feminine aspect into it, like with the self-expression and the creativity and inner peace. So I love that you're approaching it from a really unique standpoint.
Yeah, it's about having balance and also I think I love how you talk about the feminine masculine energy, because that is a huge part of, calorie counting and weigh-ins and rigorous this and rigorous that, and how women are so attached to that. And I think we can, on some levels, know that about ourselves, but it's hard to change it when we don't really understand where it came from.
Right.
And so sometimes digging back and digging deep, because we all attach meanings to our lives, when crazy things happen when we're young and we make meaning out of that. And then we turn it into a rule for ourselves, for the rest of our lives. And that rule could be, well, you got to work out. You got to do this. You got to do that. Otherwise, boys aren't going to like you or whatever we might mean from that. And we don't actually really remember where that came from. So I think that awareness and digging that out sometimes for people, they go, oh, that's where that came from. Now I get it. And then now I can let go of it a little easier, right? Yeah. Every time it pops up for us. So it's really it is digging in and figuring out where it starts.
Going into that jungle.
Yeah, the murkiness that you're talking about is so murky.
Yeah. And it can be terrifying. And at the same time, it makes you feel alive and there are discoveries to be made. And it's so interesting and full of life and energy. And that's what we really ultimately want.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. I love it. And I think that's really important work that you're doing. So I love to get guests on the show, Tanya, to share a current favorite self-care practice. And just before you do that, if you haven't listened before, or even if you have, it's worth hearing again. I love to hear different people's self-care practices that go beyond bubble baths and chocolate and wine, because number one, it gives us ideas that we might not have considered are things to like self-care. Like one guest once told me that one of her favorite current self-care practices was singing to her chickens. And I thought, wow, that would never occur to me. That we get ideas.
Awesome.
I know.
I love that.
I know. And then another reason is because what might be self-care for one person might not be self-care for another person. And it's just interesting to see how we're all so alike, and then also how we're so unique. And just because someone does something for self-care doesn't mean that you have to. And so I love that dichotomy. So what do you love to do for self-care these days?
Well, I know for me over the last 5 years, self-care for me has been digging deep and looking at some big things. One of the things that have come out of that for me was my inability to recognize myself. So I walked around with this small and insignificant mindset that was really just born out of, trauma and tragedy at a very young age. And that's kind of what it came out for me looking like. And the ways that shows up for me is stifling my self-expression and killing all of my joy and my dreams, and just stopping me from doing anything that I've ever wanted to do, like this, for example, just even getting on here today. But one of the things that I realized that I did quite often was I wouldn't recognize or acknowledge myself. When somebody would say to me, oh, wow, Tanya, like you should really, feel good about that, or something that I'd done or something that I accomplished, a success for me, I always found a way to blow it off, right? Oh, wow, that's not a big deal. Or it's, it seemed like if it didn't cause me more suffering and more trauma, and it wasn't super, super difficult hurdle for me to get through, it wasn't worth mentioning.
Right.
And so I really had to work hard at acknowledging myself. And so now the small little thing that I do is I have this, where is it? It's a tiny little green wind journal
Yeah.
that I can just keep out. And I write stuff down. I write, even if I manage to get 3 loads of laundry done in a day around kid and dog and whatever, that's a win.
Yeah.
But then I write the big stuff too. And that's one thing that I found that's been really important with working with clients is acknowledging them.
Yeah.
Acknowledging them for even being on the call, because sometimes life is real crap. And if they've made some effort to be on the call, then I want to acknowledge that, because it's so easy for us to give up and just say, oh, I just can't do it today. I'm just not worth it. Whatever, life is too hard. And then acknowledging that and them at the end for what they've brought up and what they've released, what they've been vulnerable about in that moment. And I find that clients, they really appreciate it. It's hard for them, but it's super, I found it super valuable for me and myself, just recognizing myself as, what, I'm capable and I do good things.
Well, you're talking about another one of the courageous self-care skill sets, which is self-acknowledgement and deep celebration. And you're right, as women, we've been taught to shed stuff, like don't take it in. You'll be vain and full of pride, and you won't be humble anymore, and your head will get so big. And I really don't think any of that is true. And so it's so important and valuable to cultivate the skill set. And that's all it is. It's just a skill set of shifting your mind and perhaps keeping a journal like you're doing, and starting to either, well, both acknowledge yourself, because that's where everything stems from. And then when other people give you acknowledgement, not deflecting it back to them, but accepting it
Mm-hmm.
And we do a practice with our kids every night where we say some things that we're proud of them for, and then they say some things that they're proud of themselves for.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's been interesting to notice, like, I can tell when they let it in, and I can tell when they don't. And so we
Yes.
just say, okay.
They're like little sponges.
Yeah.
We do something similar at dinner table. It's called oops, blah, yay. We talk about our oops and our blah and our yay for the day. And, where we made ourselves proud of ourselves in the day. And so my 7-year-old now is able to, like, she goes, yeah, I was really proud of myself, Mom.
Isn't that music to your heart?
It is. It is. Yeah.
That's a great practice. I haven't heard of that one before. Did you make it up?
You know what? I'm not sure I did. I think I caught it from another, somebody commented and said that their kids did that. I was like, I'm stealing that because that's
Absolutely.
really good.
Yeah. I just read a book called Steal Like an Artist. So an artist takes an idea and either replicates it but makes it their own, or they take the idea and build on it. So go ahead and steal these ideas.
Yeah.
They're fantastic. We love them. And while you were talking about that self-acknowledgement, it brought to mind for me an experience I had at a personal development course where we had to break an arrow on our throat. And I was really scared to do it. And then they gave us instructions, and I logically thought, if thousands of people have done this in their program, then I'm sure I'm going to be a success story too. So I don't need to be that scared. And then we did it, and it was done. And after I finished, after everyone finished, the trainer said, okay, put up your hand if you think that was no big deal. I'm like, yeah, it wasn't a big deal. And he said, you are not acknowledging yourselves. This was a big deal. If you were scared before and you did it, acknowledge yourself. And that was a huge aha moment for me that, oh, yeah, I do amazing stuff. And usually I just think, oh, that was no big deal.
And how quick it is to just slough it off right after it's done and after we've got through it, right?
Yeah.
You're just kind of like, oh, yeah, okay, good, that was done.
Okay, what's next?
Yeah.
So, Tanya, I wanted to ask you, how have you noticed that you've shifted since you've started keeping your journal and acknowledging yourself?
Yeah, well, one, it's when somebody else acknowledges me and I'm able to say, yeah, thank you. Like, it's been really, I notice what's come up for me is this, and I'm feeling this way about myself now. Like, I have more courage and I have more ability to just take action out of fear, even when I'm afraid. You know, a lot of people that, oh, I got to get motivated. I got to get motivated to do something. And there is no such thing as motivation as far as I'm concerned. There's just action.
Yeah.
And action is what gets you motivated to continue doing it. So, and then I can go back and read it and I can go, oh, wow, I did that. You know, in my journal, right?
Yes.
It's like sort of a reflection. And then, and I've also noticed that I'm able to write down more things.
Mm-hmm.
So where my pages started out with just sort of a few things, now I've got like, okay, so now I'm writing 3 pages. I need to get a bigger journal.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. So thank you for sharing that. That's very juicy and, well, it is motivational for us to take action and do the same thing. So we're going to pause here for a quick commercial break, and we will be right back to hear your story of courage. Welcome back. Thank you for sticking around. We're getting into even more of the murky jungle and going into the story of courage. So before you share yours, Tanya, what I want to say about getting guests to share stories of courage is that it's so powerful because we can hear ourselves in other people, and we might have come through the same thing, and then we can acknowledge ourselves and say, oh, I did that too. Or we might be a step behind and not knowing where to go. And then we hear someone's story of courage, and it gives us the inspiration to be able to take a similar step or modify it a little bit. And the energy of courage is contagious. So I think the more we talk about it, the more we give ourselves the gift of saying, yeah, I am courageous. And then hearing other people as well, we become more courageous. And courage is really the solution to so many issues that we're having. So Tanya, with having said that, I would love to hear your story of courage.
Well, I think right now what I'm doing that I feel is pretty courageous is just stepping outside of my comfort zone and coming and doing interviews like this. And as an opportunity to get myself out there and share my story um, of shame around body. That was a struggle for me too, and it revolved around for me, my story revolves around sexual abuse at a young age, and that carried through to, my whole small and insignificant mindset. And I've really, really struggled hard to overcome that. And taking my training through the Institute for the Psychology of Eating was mind blowing and really opening. And it was action work, right? Like, it wasn't just learning, how to talk to people. It was about, I had to do a lot of this work myself, right? I had to really dig deep and open up a lot of stuff. Honestly, I thought I had really dealt with, right? Like layers of the onion. I was like, man, I've got no onion left.
Yeah.
Like, I should be done this. Why am I not done this? Why am I not over this? And funny how, my daughter is 6 years old now, but after having a child of my own, well, that just brought up a whole nother, a layer of things to work with and things that come up. And so that's been kind of like my courage over the last few years, is digging those aspects of myself out, those meaning-making moments. Where did I make these meaning-making moments at 5 and 10 and whatever, and then carry them on into the rest of my life like they were the truth of who I am, and that I can't be anything else but, what those rules are that I made up way, way, way back when. So it's been working hard to disseminate them over the last few years. That's kind of been my courageous self-care. And then ongoing, it's just being diligent about becoming aware when they pop up again, because they're always there.
Mm-hmm.
They don't necessarily disappear. You just get better at picking them out, and they become less PTSD sort of affecting it. A little more, oh yeah, I'm doing that small and insignificant thing again. I'm letting that rule my world today. And instead go, okay, so we're not going to let that happen today. Let's do something opposite
Right.
of that. So that's been my courageous self-care over the last few years.
That is so powerful. And you said some very valuable things, such as getting outside of your comfort zone. And the more we practice it, the easier it is. And then our comfort zone grows, and we get to experience the bigger step and accomplishment again of getting through that. And it's so, once you get into the habit of taking action, even when you're uncomfortable, it's fascinating to me how even when we're feeling emotions that don't feel good, it's truly just uncomfortable. Like, it's not as huge a deal as we're making it in the moment. It's simply discomfort. And it's okay to feel uncomfortable. Like, that's all it is. It's just uncomfortable.
Yeah. And to also recognize that in that moment of feeling uncomfortable, that you're making it mean something about you.
Right. Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And then that's what stops us.
Mm-hmm.
That's what can have us be stopped. So I like the work that I do with clients, because it gives them an opportunity to be that vulnerable.
Yes.
Right? To have that conversation, to open up, to let go of some of these things in a safe environment that's not necessarily clinical.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, where there's clinical diagnosis of you're depressed, or you're this, or you've got that, or whatever. It's just a conversation about being human.
Yeah.
Because that's what it is. We're all just human, being human, doing human, and we have emotions, and we have anger, and we have this, and meaning-making moments that can turn our lives upside down. And it's just all about that connection with people. And sometimes that's all people need, is that connection moment to just get it out and off their chest. And then often that is enough to be able to let some things go.
Yeah, I totally agree. I've had that experience myself, and it can be amazing. Like, if you've been holding on to something for a long time and there's shame wrapped around it, or guilt or embarrassment, then it feels like we need to keep it to ourselves. But then when it comes out, yeah, like you say, often that's even enough. Or we have a new awareness because we weren't able to vocalize it up until that point. And then when it's in words, the energy is no longer being held just in us. And it's so important. Like, I love what you're saying, that connecting human to human is courageous self-care, because we are not meant to do this alone. We're not meant to do life alone. We're not meant to do healing alone. You can only go so far doing it yourself. And it's like stretching. If you have someone else stretching your body for you, you're going to go so much further than if you are just stretching it yourself. There's a specific name for that kind of stretching, but since I've trained as an embodiment coach, I love to relate things to how they show up in our bodies. And that's one very concrete example of having some assistance and guidance and someone who's on your side and helping you just makes it move faster and more easily, and there's heart connection and there's more love. So why would you want to do it by yourself?
Yeah. Well, and doing it by yourself, just when you have those moments where you're able to be vulnerable and you're able to get that out, right? Releases that shame. You said it kind of like changes the energy. Yeah. Well, what it really does is it just renders it all powerless, right? Yeah. That hold that it had on you, as soon as you voice it, you start releasing the power and the hold that it's got over you. Because when you keep it a secret and a mystery wrapped in shame, then it holds you forever.
Yeah. So we are encouraging you to reach out, and whether it's to one of us or to someone else in your life who can help you and is further along down the path than you are with a given topic, those are the best people to choose. So Tanya, if people are curious and they are realizing, oh, I get what she's talking about, I've got some of those things going on, how can they find you?
They can find me at healthyme2you.com. And I'm always offering a free 20-minute discovery coaching session for people to just get to know me. I mean, I'm not everybody's cup of tea, and that's okay. So, and find out more about what I do. And I'm just offering everybody 15% discount to any of my services on there, coaching or Bowen therapy. And you can even just simply call me at 403-512-5606.
Awesome. Well, thank you. That's very generous. And I would love to encourage you, if you're listening and you have got some issues around feeling vibrant and healthy and alive and loving in your body, and there might be some shame wrapped up in there, and hatred and self-loathing, definitely reach out to Tanya. You've got nothing to lose and a whole lot to gain. So Tanya, thank you for taking time to share who you are and your self-care and stories of courage with us. It's been a real pleasure talking to you.
Thanks for having me, Christina.
And yay, you stepped out of your comfort zone and it wasn't so bad. Right? It was okay.
Something else to add to my win journal. Yay.
Yes, awesome. Good. So thank you for listening. And I'm so grateful to you that you are tuning in, because every time we take action, like listening to this podcast, to step into the next version of ourselves, that butterfly that's waiting to come out of the cocoon, we are not just doing it for ourselves. We are energetically spreading that out into our immediate relationships, and then also just out into the rest of the world. So there is absolutely nothing selfish about self-care. You are doing it, yes, for you, but everyone in the world benefits. So what greater reason to do it than that? Thank you so much for listening, for wherever you are in the world. I look forward to connecting with you again next time. Bye-bye for now.